Well, new information tonight following a 10 Investigates report last month.
The Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority was critical of our story, which raised questions about improper spending of taxpayer money. Tonight, as investigator Mike Deeson explains, PSTA is now returning thousands of dollars to the federal government.
It is very important that it be looked at.
That's what Congressman David Jolly said in regards to these PSTA feel-good ads paid for with Homeland Security money.
PSTA has professional bus operators.
According to PSTA internal documents, the money was supposed to be used to encourage transit patrons to alert authorities if they see anything suspicious and promote awareness of security issues.
I don't understand how the TV spots do that.
Mike, I understand your question. The DHS program, the public outreach component of it, is more than just about bombs and terrorism and police force.
That is what PSTA Executive Director Brad Miller told us when we first questioned the use of Homeland Security money for the ads.
To learn more, visit greenlightpinellas.com.
And critics of a proposed transportation tax, Greenlight Pinellas, like Dr. David McCaleb, insist the ads were a front for promoting the tax.
In my opinion, they've crossed the line. They've abused taxpayer dollars.
But after our story first ran, the PSTA board and Miller blasted us for being off base.
And I've circled what the Department of Homeland Security approved the spending of those funds for.
However, in an email sent Friday morning to the PSTA board, Miller admits Homeland Security never approved the ads and it was threatening to demand repayment. In the email, Miller says instead of waiting for the demand, PSTA is voluntarily paying back the federal DHS $354,000 that funded the program.
This money was supposed to be used to educate the public to stop bus bombings, and instead PSTA abused it so they could promote their Greenlight Pinellas rail boondoggle.
Meantime, in this email, PSTA Executive Director Brad Miller continues to defend the TV spots. He admits somewhere down the road, Homeland Security would force the agency to return the money. In their speculation, Miller didn't want that happening at the same time voters were going to the polls deciding on the transit tax. Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
Well, new at 6 o'clock, calls for resignations for some top officials in charge of the Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, PSTA. And it's all a result of a 10 News investigation about the misuse of federal funds. As 10 Investigates reporter Mike Deeson explains, PSTA is now getting called out for not only misusing the funds, but lashing out at the critics who called them out.
As we've been reporting, PSTA was supposed to use the federal money to help protect bus riders from terrorists instead of promoting its transit tax, Greenlight Pinellas. The agency was forced to return $354,000 to the feds and could face federal criminal and civil charges. Opponents of the tax say those in charge abused their positions and need to go.
This government agency, the PSTA, has lost the trust of the voters because of its continued scandals relating to how they use tax money now.
However, neither the CEO, Brad Miller, nor the chairman, Ken Welch, have any intention of stepping down.
So my answer to you is consistent. Not only is the answer no, I will not resign, but heck no, I will not resign.
And despite the fact at previous meetings, the agency angrily trashed our stories, saying that it was misusing federal funds to promote the transit tax, Pinellas Greenlight, now it's admitting we were right.
That this organization made a mistake with the handling of that grant. The information that we had at our last meeting was not accurate.
Any organization makes mistakes. We have made mistakes, but we are learning from them.
But instead of losing support, both the chairman and the CEO got a unanimous vote of confidence from the board. In the newsroom, Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
Now, these are not the only issues Investigator Mike Deeson found out with the PSTA tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. Mike's investigating serious safety issues with the buses and how the PSTA tried to cover them up. New tonight, shocking emails uncovered by 10 Investigates show that the PSTA plotted to misspend a federal grant to promote its transportation ballot issue. And Congressman David Jolly is calling for Homeland Security to investigate. 10 Investigates reporter Mike Deeson joins us live in the newsroom with the details.
Well, Reg, these are pages and pages of emails we obtained through a public records request that shows instead of using hundreds of thousands of dollars of Homeland Security money to make the buses safer, PSTA had a plan to advance its transportation initiative that goes to the voters next month.
It is a bit shocking.
Congressman David Jolly is talking about these emails 10 Investigates discovered showing PSTA CEO Brad Miller was lying when he gave this explanation on how the agency had used a $350,000 grant from Homeland Security.
It's about this general idea of making the transportation system feel more safe and secure.
That's what Miller was saying before he was forced to return the money to the federal government. That happened because our previous stories pointed out PSTA used the money for TV ads to promote an upcoming ballot issue called Greenlight Pinellas, intended to increase transportation.
This organization made a mistake with the handling of that grant.
While PSTA Chairman Ken Welch tried to pass off the misuse of federal money as an honest mistake, the emails show it was intentional. In this email, Director of Marketing Janet Recca explains,
we were able to leverage our federal grant dollars and further Greenlight efforts.
In this email, Miller says of the ads,
they must have the Greenlight logo, and I insist on this and won't approve payment on anything else.
And once again, in an email, Miller is saying,
I know you, Janet, have heartburn about how this grant is being used. We can easily add some stuff about your beloved security.
And these emails show they knew that they were using the taxpayer dollars to do that.
In their words, they say they leveraged the grant money, essentially taxpayer dollars. They leveraged taxpayer dollars to promote Greenlight. That's wrong.
And this was last year. This is not tied to the Greenlight effort that's underway right now.
And while Welch tries to maintain the misuse of federal money is not about Greenlight, that is exactly what it's about. And Jolly is calling for the Department of Homeland Security to open an investigation.
Once you get these emails, there is the smoking gun that we always talk about.
Listen, this should be looked at.
PSTA returned the money to the federal government, but in a letter, Homeland Security told PSTA, even if the debt is paid in full, the United States does not waive its right to pursue any applicable civil or criminal penalties. And that is what could happen if an investigation is open. We posted all these emails on our website, WTSP.com. In the newsroom, Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
Strong reaction today to 10 Investigates' discovery of emails that appear to show the Pinellas Transit Authority, PSTA, willfully misspent $350,000 of federal money.
Now, investigative reporter Mike Deeson, who first broke the story, joins us from the newsroom with the very latest. Mike.
Dion and Reg, you might recall just last Friday we told you about more than 70 pages of internal emails showing PSTA had a plan to leverage that $350,000 that it was forced to return to the federal government. That happened because the agency used the money to promote its transportation ballot issue, Greenlight. Opponents say it is unacceptable, and they place the blame on CEO Brad Miller.
I feel that Brad Miller should just resign, but if Brad Miller won't resign today, I do think the board should go on ahead and make a motion and take action to remove him today.
Opponents of Greenlight Pinellas told the board over and over Wednesday that CEO Brad Miller must go.
Don't ask for Mr. Miller's resignation. Someone make a motion and remove him from office today. Right now.
But Miller contends PSTA did not knowingly violate the conditions of the federal grant nor try to illegally use the money to promote Greenlight in TV ads.
Those emails talk about logos at the very end of a 30-second ad. That
They didn't talk about leveraging the federal money to promote Greenlight? There wasn't an email from Janet Recca that said that?
There was an email that did say that.
And Miller tried to downplay the internal emails we discovered because he says it's old news, despite the fact they just surfaced in our story last week. Why should you not be fired or face criminal charges for misappropriating $350,000 of federal money?
I know that you were very focused on these emails from a year ago, and I've already apologized for that. It was a mistake.
Opponents don't believe it.
The man knew what was going on. He doesn't care. He could come up for federal charges.
But the board members and Chair Ken Welch, all of whom blasted our initial stories, don't believe Miller intended to do wrong.
Our take is that it was an honest mistake. It was an unacceptable use of that money. You were right in your initial report. When we got the correct information, we did everything we could to make it right. We want to move forward as a board.
And by making it right, they had to give back that money. Now, the board is hoping a yes vote in 2 weeks will put this issue to rest. Meantime, some of the supporters of Greenlight privately tell me they're worried and say if the issue fails, Miller's handling of the grant money could be a decisive factor. To see our previous stories, go to our website, WTSP.com. We've posted them in the newsroom. Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
The Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, or PSTA, was hit hard last month when voters defeated a tax to expand transportation. That's the measure known as Greenlight Pinellas. Well, now they're making some big changes following our investigation. 10 Investigates' Mike Deeson is here with an update.
We're now learning the agency has fired some key people, including IT Director True Wynn, who was fired for no apparent reason. The fleet maintenance supervisor, Angelo Robetti, was fired for a second time, the first when a handwriting expert hired with taxpayer dollars said he was a mole feeding us information, but was wrong. Robetti was rehired and then recently fired. Next was Marketing Director Janet Recca, after 10 Investigates exposed emails detailing how the agency lied to obtain hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal grants. In this email, CEO Brad Miller said Recca had heartburn over how the federal grant money was being used illegally. Recca has now been fired since our report. And was Janet Recca fired because she had heartburn over the way the grant was used?
You know, I think you and I have talked about that a lot. I've taken full responsibility of that, but you know, of course, that I won't talk about any specific personnel issue.
Meantime, since our investigation uncovering wheels falling off buses, another wheel was reported loose and mechanics are now inspecting lug nuts each morning. Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
A serious and potentially dangerous situations for drivers on the roads and riders of local public buses.
Now, 10 Investigates uncovered 1/3 of the buses run by the Pinellas Transit Authority, PSTA, were overdue for preventive maintenance. And when investigator Mike Deeson started digging deeper, PSTA directors tried covering up the problem.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, but for a few PSTA buses, the wheels are falling off.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Definitely concerned.
10 Investigates discovered in the past 4 months, PSTA reported tires falling off 2 buses while en route. In April, one PSTA bus driver reported hearing rubber or plastic hitting something, and then a passenger reported seeing smoke and said, "I heard a loud noise and the tire left the bus." In July, on another bus, a tire fell off while making a turn in Clearwater.
Safety is our #1 priority here.
PSTA Maintenance Director Henry Lukasik is in charge of the nearly 200 buses on the road every day in Pinellas County.
We went back, we immediately looked into every single bus, all of our 200 buses within 1 hour of...
Of number 1 or number 2?
Both times, both times.
So if you did it after number 1, how did number 2 happen?
2 separate instances.
But perhaps these instances could have been prevented. 10 Investigates uncovered records verifying 1/3 of the public buses not having proper inspections and missing preventative maintenance required by the state. Is there a problem with inspections?
We have gotten behind on inspections.
But that's not what PSTA told us when we initially made a request for a list of buses that were out of compliance with maintenance inspections. The agency said there was no list because there were no buses out of compliance. But when we showed the agency its own list that we had obtained, PSTA admitted, yes, there was a list, and yes, there was a problem.
The list that you have is a list of inspections that are due.
Which is what I requested.
Well, that's the list that we provided.
You provided it after I sent the list that you folks said didn't exist. After we started asking PSTA about preventative maintenance, the agency went into high gear, correcting what it called in this email a serious issue.
There's a backlog of work.
And that backlog is leading to potentially dangerous situations for passengers as well as other drivers on the road.
That makes me feel really bad because me and my daughter both use the bus to get around everywhere.
After we started asking questions, PSTA went into overdrive, paid overtime, and stopped everything else to make sure all the buses got the needed maintenance. But when we asked Lukasik how the problem happened and can the public be sure it won't happen again, he said, well, just like any other situation, sometimes you get a backlog of work, meaning unless someone stays on the agency's case, this might not be an isolated incident. You can be sure we'll stay on top of it. In the newsroom, Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
The Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, PSTA, is under fire yet again tonight.
Now, the agency, which illegally used hundreds of thousands of dollars in a Homeland Security Grant, recently fired several employees who claimed they have been targeted as sources for 10 Investigates.
Now, PSTA is running into more safety concerns, and tonight, 10 Investigates Mike Deeson is asking why the public agency is still not meeting standards.
You're looking out the front window of a Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority bus, which was beginning its daily run. But once it passed the Clearwater-St. Pete Airport, the driver pulled over to stop because the wheels started to wobble and was coming off. It was a potential danger for everyone on the road.
Is there a problem with inspections?
We have gotten behind on inspections.
That's what PSTA Maintenance Director Henry Lukasik told us earlier this year when 10 Investigates discovered wheels fell off 2 of the buses with passengers aboard. At the same time, 1/3 of the buses were past due for inspection. Lukasik said the agency would go into high gear to correct a serious issue regarding past due inspections. But 10 Investigates uncovered the agency is still not keeping up with inspections, and more than 10% of the buses are once again late for inspection, which could be why the lug nuts were dangerously loose. This photo shows the agency has new lug nut guards on the buses, and employees are spending hours inspecting wheels every day, taking time away from much-needed required maintenance.
Well, we're working on it, and we are much better on maintenance.
The wheel, you just had the lug nuts just come off.
Well, yeah, I'm going to get much more involved with maintenance, and we're going to really work hard on getting that better.
And then there's the discrepancy about a series of local routes called the Connector Service. Before applying for a $750,000 grant, CEO Brad Miller said those routes would be staffed by much cheaper part-time drivers. But once the money came in, the part-time driver plan was shelved, and full-time bus operators are driving those routes, and taxpayers are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime.
On the grant compliance, we're checking into that. The connector thing, I haven't heard anything from the Florida DOT, but we need to look into that.
And while PSTA suffered a big defeat in November when the voters defeated a tax to expand transportation, Miller says the agency is working to gain public support and trust, even though we've uncovered constant missteps.
Why does the agency say it's going to do one thing?
I think we've talked a lot about all of that. All right, we're checking in. We're trying to improve our maintenance. We're trying to improve our grant compliance.
We also uncovered at least one of the connector routes, which is funded by the most recent grant awarded to PSTA and has full-time drivers working it, on an average has less than 9 passengers a day. And we're looking into that as well. In the newsroom, Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.
And those on the road.
You're looking at what could be a pilot for a show called Bus Drivers Behaving Badly. The stars of the show are bus drivers from PSTA in Pinellas. And Chief Operating Officer James Bradford is not proud of what he sees.
And we get these episodes and you cringe and you say, what happened?
But what might make you cringe is the fact some of these drivers behaving badly are still behind the wheel.
I'm a fan of the second chance, but not to compromise our public safety.
At what point do you say it's enough?
James Booth, who rides the bus every day, filed this complaint last year accusing driver Donna Cameron of rude behavior. Cameron was involved in a physical fight with a different passenger and disciplined.
They fired her for this incident.
Okay.
She got her job back. They gave her a second chance.
Wow. Yeah. If I could be so lucky to have so many chances at my job or just at anything, to do that to somebody, you belong in jail.
But Cameron is still driving a bus, even after being disciplined for refusing to strap a wheelchair rider into a bus. And she was disciplined for not pulling to the bus stop on the right side of the street, which prompted the rider to exit through the window and using a cell phone.
There's a zero tolerance for any type of cell phone use on the bus.
That would be nice if it was true. We found other drivers, Evelyn Abram and Karen O'Hara, using their phones. In fact, O'Hara was caught twice.
Now, her brother is the head of the union, is he
Her
not?
brother is the president of the Tampa Bay Area Workers Transit Union. That is correct.
Did that come into play at all?
You know what? It did not. Of course, he represented her.
And then there's Mark Smith, who was caught cursing and screaming at someone who wanted to get on the bus.
Where initially, if somebody shows me a video, I'm thinking that person cannot work here.
But there were signs before this video in a PSTA report that points out Smith was showing an angry disposition, lack of control, and took an aggressive approach. Smith was fired, but the drivers' union negotiated to having him rehired.
What do you say to the guy at home who says, wow, what are you thinking?
I say to those folks that not in all these instances, some of these folks have been terminated and they're gone. So if somebody comes back out there, they've been reformed.
But clearly there are some who disagree. Meantime, we did check with Hillsborough County's public transportation HART, and they didn't have the same discipline record for physical altercations and rude behavior. But HART doesn't record the audio due to the cost. In the newsroom, Mike Deeson, 10 Investigates.